everyone. This is Catherine Jelinek with the Skinny Platform, and I am thrilled today to be here with EOS implementer Dan Zawacki. Welcome, Dan. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. I can't believe you got my name right. That's pretty good. It's a good start.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Dan, tell us, you're here to share about your nugget, and the acronym is G.G.O.T.O. So tell us, what does that stand for?
Okay, G.G.O.T.O, the greater good of the organization, which is really one of the foundations of, companies running on EOS. And so I've been doing this for almost 6 years. And one of the things that I found out, especially in the beginning, is teams, they're not really thinking about the whole organization, right? They're thinking about, oh, me, right? That's typical. Or they're thinking about, oh, my team, or my department. And so that's one of the things on that very first day, you got to like just break that. And you got to say, no. Or we're going to make a ton of decisions today. And every time we meet at the Vision Day Building, 1, 2, quarterlies, annuals, and if your head is in there thinking about what's best for me, what's best for my department, you will make the wrong decision every time. You got to go in there looking up at that 40,000 foot level, thinking, what's the best decision for the company? And if you come up with that decision based upon those parameters, you're always going to make the right decision. And it's really that simple. And so when I am teaching, I just write on the whiteboard, just write up there, G.G.O.T.O. And so it's right there in front of everybody, the whole team. And sometimes if somebody's kind of, drifting off, kind of getting a little bit of, the me's, I will just point to the board. I'll go, okay, what is this decision being made upon? You or the greater good of the organization? And it's very simple, practical, and powerful when people get that.
I can see how that would be a jolt, to shift mindset and perspective every time that they're reminded of that and look at that on the board. Is there anything else that you do to help them elevate to that 40,000 foot perspective? Because that's not natural to a lot of us to, do our day-to-day work and be thinking about the things we're touching and handling every day, and then to elevate so quickly. It's kind of a learned skill in a way. Tell me more about how you help that shift happen.
Yeah, so I literally draw on the board. I tell people that, if you're in the business, and I'll draw like a little alien head, and I'll say, if your mind is in the business today, you will, and you're thinking about all that stuff that's going on, all the emails you got to get to, the quote you got to send out, the person you got to call, then we're going to have a really bad session. And so I say, and this is like literally one of the first things I said, you must elevate yourselves, and I'll draw an arrow and point it to the top of their head so that you are working on the business. So I like to draw things out because that really resonates with people. And that's my little trick. That's two tips I got here.
That's great. Well, it's like teaching them organizational awareness, outside of their own self and job day-to-day work.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of times where when you first work with a team on the focus day, one of the first things you do is that accountability chart where you are building the structure, the foundation of their business. And many times it's usually like the owner, he's been sprinkled all over the place. And he's doing a little this, a little that, but nothing great. And so when you first get together and you say, okay, we need a leadership team. All right, we need someone in charge of sales and marketing, someone in charge of operations, finance. Then we need this person we call the integrator, oversees everything. And then if there's a visionary, typically it's the founder. Then we put the roles all together. And when you first time you do that, instinctively, naturally, have built silos. Okay, we're in marketing and sales. We got this. We're going to be better than the other teams out there. We're going to be the best. And right away, boom, you can't do that. Everyone is equal. And it's one of the first things I'll tell people is, I don't care if you're the owner, I don't care if you're the founder. I don't care anything about that. When you're in a session room, everyone is equal. So feel free to disagree. And then sometimes it's the first time people are like give permission to disagree with the owner. And that also is part of that G.G.O.T.O. Okay. So what's for the greater good of the organization? What the founder just said or the visionary or something else? And so you got to start building that in day one. It takes time, but by the third, fourth session, people are arguing for the greater good of the organization, really taking a stance on it. And the cool thing is when you have really healthy teams, they can argue their point. And if someone argues the point, another point, that they could easily say, oh, okay. And they can change their mind and everybody's good. So you come up with what's the greater good of the organization. And that's powerful.
Do you have an example of one of the toughest situations you had with a company in terms of helping them really understand and see the importance of the greater good of the organization?
Oh yeah, actually I have a lot of them, but the one that just really just stands out is it was at the focus day, and when we were building the accountability chart, which some people call it an organizational chart, but accountability chart is forward looking, but nonetheless, it's just more impactful. And it was two owners, 50-50, and they didn't like each other. Matter of fact, they kind of hated each other. And that's why they hired me, because they had to fix this, which isn't going to happen overnight. But anyways, when we were building the accountability chart, what I noticed is they were building literally two companies because they didn't like each other. So they had each one had their own operations person that was like their person. They had their own salesperson, their own marketing person, their own finance person. So they had it was like a complete separate organization. And I finally go, do we have two companies here? And they're like, oh, no. That's just the way we are. And so I said to them, I go, remember G.G.O.T.O, the greater good of the organization? Having two people in marketing, having two people in operations, having two people, that is not for the greater good of the organization. That does not bring clarity. It brings confusion. It's just a terrible structure for, management style. How do your people know who to report to? And they were like, yeah, well, that's one of the things. Nobody knows who to talk to. I'm like, okay. So then we rebuilt this accountability chart with just the one organization. And of course, it took a little bit of time for them to get used to it. But finally they did. And they kind of like each other again. So it worked out.
Wow. They like each other again. They found their way to that.
They respect each other. I'll go that far.
That's impressive. That's cool. Sometimes walls need to be broken down in order to find
Yeah.
what's actually possible.
Well, one of the things I've learned of doing, implementing, is that when you're an organization, you're kind of like inside the jar. And if you're inside the jar, it's really hard to read the label. And so as an implementer, I have that ability. I could read the label, I could look in the jar, and I could put it all together, and I could see the imperfections and impurities that, a team that's been working together for 10 plus years, they just think, well, that's just the way it is. But no, doesn't mean just because that's the way it is, doesn't mean that's the right way. So I teach them these things. I don't tell them stuff, right? Because I'm not a consultant. I'm a teacher. So we have all the different tools, and the accountability chart is one of the most powerful tools to really teach people. You look at it, and it was pretty easy to see, wow, that's two companies that we have here, but we're really one. I even asked them, I go, do you have two P&Ls? They're like, no. I go, okay, then you're one company.
So, have you had any really shining examples of this? Companies that come to you and either quickly get the G.G.O.T.O or even come in with it naturally? How do they behave that's different? How do they exemplify that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of my, not quite how to describe it, but I'll say the higher functioning teams, they kind of just get that innately. And other time, and size really doesn't, how big the company is, how many people, revenue doesn't really matter. Other people, all of a sudden a light bulb goes up in their head. They're like, oh my gosh, that's what's going on here. Everybody's in their own little silo doing their own little things. And every once in a while they come together and hash things out. And mostly it's more arguing and fighting, as opposed to working towards the greater good of the organization. And so you kind of really never know. You try and, when you first meet people, I was trying to figure out where they are. But if they've been that way for 10 plus years, they're pretty good at hiding it. So it just comes out. But that's part of my job. Bring it out.
Yeah, to find out what's under the rug. And so there have been some, oh, I'm sorry. There have been some though that have come in with this innately.
Yeah. They really just didn't have a label for it. And so I give them the label. One of the things we teach is same language, where everybody speaks the same language. So
Tell me more about that.
So if I'm talking, yeah, so the same language is just for simplicity's sake. This happens all the time. You got the marketing and sales. Half the people call leads leads. The other half call them prospects. So everybody below them, the direct reports, are kind of like, what are we talking about? Leads or prospects? We're kind of like, well, it's really the same thing. So whenever I'm hearing people, giving a different name to the same activity or same thing, I'll just stop right there and say, okay, for now and forever, what are we going to call this? Prospects or leads? And they'll talk about it, and they'll go, we're going to call them leads. Okay, then for now and forever, leads. That's really powerful because, that I've seen, that can cost big bucks, people not speaking the same language. Especially if you're selling a big contract, you got to speak the same language as your people and your client.
I can see that. You're really teaching them. Yes, it isn't two for one in this, but you're really teaching them with both the unification.
Yeah.
Alignment.
Alignment's a good word. That's pretty much my main goal, is to make sure that everyone, by the end of our session, everyone is 100% aligned. Not 90, but 100. And the G.G.O.T.O, the greater good of the organization, is one of the ways you get everybody, in alignment. So they're all moving in the same direction. Because if everybody's moving in the same direction, you just automatically are a quicker, faster, better, more profitable team.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think I could have summed it up better myself, Dan.
I'm sure you could have, but thank you.
That's perfect. Any last parting wisdom for companies who are working towards this and want to make sure their teams are aligned and thinking about the greater good of the organization? Any simple tips for keeping that top of mind?
I think it's something that you need to reinforce all the time. Because, the whole thing is you got to hear it 7 times before you hear it the first time. So it's kind of interesting. I have some teams that are all women. And whenever I mention that, they're like, no, Dan, we're women. You only got to tell us 3 times and we get it. It's the guys you have to tell 17 times. So I think repetition, which is kind of true. You can ask my wife. But repetition, I think, is the key. And I'd even offer, if anybody needs help, one of my core values is here to help. They can email me or call me or whatever. I'm always happy to help somebody out. I get a kick out of it.
Very cool. Well, repetition and keeping that G.G.O.T.O present, even on the whiteboard when you're not there, it sounds like.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for this, Dan. Very insightful. Love the 2 nuggets for 1. Much appreciated.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. This episode of the Podcast of Nuggets is presented by The Skinny Platform and is released in support of Freedom Reads, a national nonprofit opening handcrafted, curated 500-book libraries in prison cell blocks across America. Freedom Libraries are more than just books. They are lifelines. They bring connection, hope, and dignity to prisons. Learn more at freedomreads.org. Freedom begins with a book.